Okay, my topic for this video is the death of the Big Bang Theory and what we should do about it in terms of alternative explanations for scientifical modeling of the origin of the universe. And I guess before I get started, I want to advertise my favorite drink, the Budweiser Chelada in Bud Light and Bud Regular Chelada drinks. So here's the thing. Look, the Hubble constant is interpreted to mean redshift due to velocity of retreating galaxies. But that's just an interpretation. There's other things that can make your light redshifted. For instance, you've all seen the moon on the horizon, or the sun on the horizon, and you notice that becomes very redshifted, and that's not because the moon happens to be traveling a portion of the speed of light away from us in the early evening. It's because the light waves are, of course, traveling through a lot of particles, air particles. And it only makes sense that the further away a galaxy is, the more particles it must travel through to reach us. So you could probably make the assumption that the redder the light, the further the object, but there's no absolute reason to conclude that the redder the object, the faster it's retreating. Now, the reason I bring that up is because when you're modeling the universe, there's a lot of things that need to be taken into consideration, and as you know, the cosmic background radiation has also been interpreted to be a remnant of the Big Bang. However, why not interpret that to be the cumulative effects of the 0-point quantum radiation? Because we know that there's a 0-point energy, and that if you take a universe full of it, it should contribute, I believe, to the temperature. So this is some of the reinterpretations that should be made. The other thing that's particularly problematic, of course, even with the cosmic background radiation, you have the need for this arbitrary inflationary period in the early universe. That's like just pulling something out of a hat to get the points to connect. Seems to me that the rotational angular momentum of galaxies is very difficult to explain from the standard Big Bang model. The rotational angular momentum of galaxies actually mimics a Bose-Einstein condensate, a vortex in a Bose-Einstein condensate. If you took the entire universe and sort of pictured it as a four-dimensional condensate, which is basically, superfluid, and what happens is there's strange properties when you rotate a superfluid. You're all used to, say, stirring your coffee in the morning or whatever you're drinking there. You stir it up, and it depresses in the middle. You start fast enough, you get the vortex goes drops down towards the bottom of the cup. In the case of Bose-Einstein condensate, or a super fluid helium, that rotation causes not just one a vortex, but you get numerous vortices throughout the volume of whatever the helium. So, in a like manner, and I'm not saying it's exactly, obviously it's not an exact symmetric comparison, but in a like manner, your galaxies are rotating vortices, and there's numerous ones, so that this is problematic, I think, for the Big Bang, because the Big Bang has this sort of idea of a expansion from a point. That's what the singularity is. And I know these guys try to explain it away with Klein bottles and things like this, but there's three-dimensional Mobius donut, or whatever you want to call it. It's still very problematic in terms of the modeling, because the whole idea of the Hubble interpretation of this expansion requires this precondition that these galaxies were closer at one point, and the idea is that everything was actually at a point. So no matter where you want to try to place that point in terms of your psychology, nonetheless it's a point, and the model is that everything's racing away from this particular point. So and you can't get around it. This whole business about saying it's the same everywhere still contradicts the fact that you're starting with a point. Now, your singularity, there's a built-in contradiction there. So the rotational angular momentum of galaxies, I think, helps point out that contradiction, that you're not going to get that kind of angular momentum from an expanding singularity. If you want to get singularities, you can have them, but they're in the center of each galaxy. And it's not necessary to have all the galaxies starting at one point. This is the cosmology, I believe, that eventually the scientific world will catch up to in 50, maybe 100 years, maybe 150 years. The realization that the universe is infinite spatially, although it's finite chronologically. And a spatially infinite universe does not collapse in on itself, because you have an equal amount of gravitational force in all directions. Oh, by the way, also you notice if when you stir your coffee in the morning and you get a little bit of foam on top, looks extremely like spiral galaxy. And I'm not saying that there's some kind of proof, but I'm just saying that that's how you begin to assemble a intuitive model of what's actually going on. So if you look at, consider this theory of nucleons as miniature black holes. What happens, and I think it's an interesting theory, because when you get down to quantum scales, you have particles behaving in ways that require more than 4 dimensions. You have things like non-locality and what seems to be time reversals and these kinds of things that require extra dimensions. And so I like the idea of a singularity, provided that you don't use the term infinite density. And the reason I say it is because what happens is this singularity is actually an opening to spread out into the extra dimensions. So that would hardly be infinitely dense. You would actually, I think, find less density in the environment, the immediate environment of the singularity, in terms of if you have a nucleon and black hole. I mean, face it, that's really just like billions and billions and billions of nucleons in Bose-Einstein kind of say it, in sharing the same nuclear or the same quantum properties, and perhaps you could get a rather large vortex and an opening to extra dimensions. I don't have a problem with that, but the whole model here is one where the universe it contains multiple singularities in the center of galaxies, and that was a creation event. In other words, as the universe came into its present state, it happened in say spread out in an infinite, spatially infinite sense, and I guess the best way to explain this is the old Polaroid film development. If you ever seen, and I guess what happened with any film development actually, but Polaroid, happens in daylight. The whole picture comes into focus all at once. You don't start with a point and it spreads out, and I think that's the proper way to look at the creation of the universe. It's something that that took place in infinite space. It didn't take place in infinitesimal space as a singularity that you could have and by the way, it's not the comparison with say the Polaroid photograph. It comes in focus spread out across the entire two-dimensional plane. That is an example of the I guess the scaling nature of the thing. But what I really want to talk about is what's actually taking place in terms of what we consider the universe. And I made one of my most popular videos, I guess, is that one about God, M theory, and I forget what else it's called. God and M theory and Matrix and Genesis. And the point that I keep stressing, I guess, in my ministry is one of the things that I'm trying to communicate, not just to the secular world, but the Christian world. I think has suffered from sort of a Dark Ages interpretation of the nature of creation, as if there was nothing before, and all of a sudden, you got reality, and before that you had non-reality, you had nothing. But that's I think a very offensive view from God's perspective. You can't look at God and think, okay, well, he's in some kind of nothing environment, or he's see, God is all in all, and was so before the creation of the universe. So the creation of the universe is not an addition to God, but it's a subtraction from God. God is making room in him for us finite beings. So the environment we're experiencing is one that's a result of a retraction, a dimensional retraction, and I think this is what gives provides the initial force for all the movement in the universe, because you have this kind of retraction, dimensional retraction is causing I believe, the movement of the galaxies, and would also, I think, be an explanation for all the singularities in the center of the galaxies, and maybe even, for that matter, the singularities, if in fact nucleons, or even maybe quarks are miniature black holes. So, anyways, I wanted to share these thoughts with you because I want to try to influence the thinking, especially, I guess, in the Christian world, about the nature of creation, because I think it's been backwards for so long. And I also want to advance, human knowledge by giving people ideas about how to come up with original thinking instead of just taking dogmatically what comes down to us from the universities. There's an awful lot of dogmatic repetition on YouTube, where you get these wise guys, college students, that come on and they just like recite everything they heard from the professors, and they're not really actually contributing anything new to the body of knowledge. They're just making themselves useful idiots at some point. Now, I understand it's not always that way, because obviously there's an awful lot of correct understanding in the sciences, but you're not going to, if you just continue to this dogmatic approach, I mean, that's the thing that enabled Einstein to make such advances, is because he just did not fall in line with the Newtonian dogma. And I understand, of course, he had help from some of these mathematicians at the time who, some of these ideas, Hilbert and some of the other guys, were kicking around. Some of the ideas that helped Einstein, hone in on his accurate descriptions of relativity. Now, of course, there's something else missing here, and I do think that we're eventually going to see gravity as a result of a universal pressure, as opposed to an attractive force in between masses. The masses, I think, are creating the low pressure environment for the universal pressure to flow in the direction of mass, and I think that it's flowing in and through into an extra dimensional environment through the microscopic singularities of the nucleon, for instance. So, anyways, that's my little rant for the next couple of weeks, I guess, until I get motivated to say something else to the YouTube world.